It's thinking about it.
It shows we're live on my side.
All right. Hello there. Welcome to Wake Up with Giants TV. And this is Limitless with Shawnalee. And I would love to welcome Amanda Monk to our show tonight. And we will be talking about the Desire Map from Danielle LaPorte. Danielle LaPorte. Man, I can't even say that. And pleasure in speaking with Amanda. So I will let you just talk a little bit about yourself and how you came upon the Desire Map and how you use that in your business.
Sure. So a little about me. So I'm a transformational coach. I specialize in doing shadow work with people and intimacy coaching, relationship coaching. Let's see. So the whole concept of the Desire Map, which is actually the name of the book, and core desired feelings came into my life maybe about 8 years ago. And I was going through a really big change in my life. I was definitely still in corporate America then, and was very much in the hustle culture of push, go. I had just moved from the San Francisco Bay Area to Denver, had just gone through a divorce, and was really doing a kind of like a reset of my life. And typical for me to set goals that some I might just like, we set New Year's resolutions. Sometimes we stick with them and sometimes we don't. And I came across this whole desire mapping thing. I was like, what is this? This sounds really interesting. And was really taken with the concept. And so I think we'll get into that in more depth in a few minutes. But really, it stuck for me because it worked. Yeah. And so I've continued to use it year after year. I use it not just for my business. It's kind of all of my core desired feelings, which now where my life is today, there's a lot more alignment between life and desires in my life and my career, where at that time it was very bifurcated. It was like, this is my career stuff and this is my personal life stuff. And they felt like they were on different tracks. And so at that point, I was creating some core desired feelings that would be career based, and then core desired feelings that were personal. And through, the life and learning and growth and healing and changing, being more in alignment with myself. I don't live my life that way anymore with that bifurcation, but the core desired feelings and the concept and the structure of it is definitely still something I do every year.
I love that. Yeah, we tend to, Danielle talks about this as well, is that when we get into that state and we're not listening to our heart and we're not listening to our mind, like that hyperized masculine energy, like just go, push, and really like physically, mentally, like really pushing yourself, then all of a sudden, like things start to crash, like you start to get that burnout and you start to go into like the overworked and uninspired. And it's actually like lack is really burnt out. You're just burnt out. You're not inspired. And we could tend to get into that vibration. And so then life literally asks you to stop. And
sometimes you're forced to stop, right?
Yeah.
Throat chakra here. My throat is getting like,
Yes. Yeah. You're speaking the truth.
Excuse me. Yeah.
I
mean, just continuing on that, that was absolutely how I was living my life at that time. I'd gone from doing business consulting, so working contract to contract, 60-hour weeks, hustle in a place where even getting from one place to the next, there was traffic to get to the grocery store even. I mean, it was just a very different place, a different lifestyle than the life I lead today, where I live in Wyoming. There is no traffic. which is lovely and a big shift. Pros and cons, but at that time, I had switched into more of a full-time role, but it was still very hustle based. And I was a IT director. I was working for a healthcare company on their corporate side in IT. And, I had a team that I led. I had a $10 million budget I was responsible for. Like, it was very highly structured. I was in technology risks. So we were dealing with things like HIPAA and SOX and PHI and all these other things that are also very rigid and important. We need structure, and we need the masculine, and we need, that energy of frameworks. Absolutely. But it was very unbalanced in my life. And I was really shifting from knowing I needed to change some things. That's why I left consulting and took a full-time position with a company, knowing I wouldn't have to, be looking for my next gig every 6 to 12 months too. And so coming from that and being in total burnout, my ex-husband was military, active duty military. And so there was a whole other level of stress with that in our lives. And so I think it took me a good 6 months, maybe even a year, to really feel like I decompressed from the lifestyle I had left. And of course, I still stepped into something that was high stress, but it wasn't as much. And really began focusing on, at the time, my deepest desire was to have a child. And I knew I had to shift some things. I needed to get more in touch with my body. I needed to get more in touch with my feminine energy. I needed to get a lifestyle created where I could make space, to have a child in my life. And also realized, I'm on my own now. And so I get to create anything I want. And, I really didn't need to consider not having a partner at the time. I didn't need to consider a partner. So I had come across, like I said, Danielle's book. And when I dug into it, I remember even the moment where I felt really touched by it, because she had, I was actually listening to her audiobook, and I had the actual book too, because it's a bit of a workbook, but I was listening to the audio of it because she narrates it, and it's beautiful. Her voice is beautiful. It's so beautiful. Isn't it? It's so grounding. Yeah. And she was saying how she would go through this process with her partner. They'd sit in front of the fireplace and they would create their goals together. And what really struck me was, she said, I was so tired of creating goals, reaching them, and feeling unfulfilled, and feeling like that's it. And then just moving right to the next goal, or stretching the bar even higher, because I didn't feel that sense of fulfillment and that sense of what I hoped it would make me feel when I got the thing done. And I was like, oh my God, that's my life. Yeah. That's been my life. That was my career. I would continue to achieve, and I'd get a higher bill rate, or I would get an even greater contract, or I would work for a company I loved, thinking this is the next, I'm going to feel so fulfilled here. And I was chasing this ghost. I was chasing this thing that didn't exist, because I wasn't lining myself up from a place of, my heart center, or any center, really. It was just, what am I supposed to be doing? Yeah. And you're constantly chasing, then that's going to just repel it away over and over. I can relate to that as well. Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in it. And I feel like a lot's changed in our society over the past even 5 years. Yes. Definitely over the last 2. Yeah. Pandemic and everything. Yeah. So I feel like a lot has changed even since then. So, I feel like this concept and this method is maybe even a little easier to relate to now than it was then when it first came out. It felt very radical to me when I first started doing it. Yeah. I had just heard about it last year and was taking a course, and that radically shifted me as well. As like, okay, well, what are your core desired feelings? Like, what is the things that just really makes you
and drives you. And it helps you kind of get in tone and in touch with your feelings. And instead of operating from here, because I have had a lot of goals that were just like from the mind. And it's like, no, I have to do this. This is what I'm going to do. And just that energy of like, no, this is it. And that's just not in alignment. And so then when you could come from the heart space and really like listen to the heart, so we have the brain we have our brain, right? Our mind, we have a brain in our heart, and we also have a brain in our gut. But out of those three, the heart is 5,000 times more magnetic and electric than the other centers. And so when you can stop and when you can pause and listen to that heart space, man, does that ever change things? And
it's so powerful.
Yeah. So if you want to share a bit, maybe what your, do you have like 3 core desires? Like, what is your focus?
Sure. I'll share mine. Well, first I want to just define what is a core desired feeling?
Yes, please.
A core desired feeling. So the idea of a goal, right, is like achievement based. So my goal is what I'm going to get when I'm done.
Yeah.
And that's how we create goals. It's like, I want, I don't know, a $10,000 month in my business, or I want to have X vacation this year, or maybe I want this promotion. And so you're focused on the end goal and the outcome, and probably focused on some milestones to get there. You may or may not have awareness that you've projected an anticipated feeling to what that'll be like when I get there. So when I have the thing, I will feel X.
Yes.
Right? So core desired feelings are actually figuring out, how do I want to feel this year? Not what do I want to achieve, as much as, if I achieve that thing, what feeling do I desire? What core feeling do I want this year? And they do align to goals. It's not that we forget about goals altogether, but we're not using the milestones necessarily as the motivator. We're using alignment to the feeling as your compass. So that's the difference. And so core desired feelings are the feelings you desire to feel majority of the time for an X period of time. I do them a year at a time. Yeah. And so my core desired feelings this year, I always start with a list that's like really big, and then I have a process for that. I actually teach that in a workshop that's really fun. And we go through this process. I start first with revisiting my values. What are my values this year? They're probably, majority of them are going to be the same as they were before. But I realize when I really sit down to a fresh sheet of paper, and I usually do this at the end of a year as opposed to the January of the year, because I like to do a little bit, my witchy side comes in. I like to do a little bit of ritual magic at the end of the year. I like to do it actually on the winter solstice. And so I try to get mine figured out before the winter solstice, and then I use that later. So I usually start with a big list, have my values. I'm like, yep, these are my values. And then from there, that helps center me and get in my heart space, so that I can get into the brain space of what are the words that feel good, because I want to have my brain and my heart in alignment, like a chariot moving me forward. Yes. And so my core desired feelings I'll share this year, and they mean something really, really specific to me. So the words I use are words that have a resonance for me. You talked about the heart having a magnetic field. Yes. Everything has a frequency to it. Everything has a resonance. Words are also really powerful, and words have a resonance, and words are essentially, everything we speak is a symbol. Yes, exactly. And so the words are super important to me, and I will have a list of potential core desired feelings, and I really need to sit with each one and feel, does this resonate? Does it genuinely create the sensation internally for me that is the feeling that I desire? Yeah. So mine for this year, for 2022, the first one is pleasure. And that is a really, has a very deep, deep, deep meaning for me. Yeah. My second is faith. And faith might not mean to me what it means to someone else. The next one is affluence.
Mm.
And then healthy,
Yeah.
backed, and love. So those are my core desired feelings, and they mean something very special to me. I take these words as I'm going through and like have this big list of words, and I'll actually look into the meaning of the words. Like I might start with a dictionary or a thesaurus and just be
Yeah.
like, yeah, this is kind of where I'm at. This is the feeling. I might find that a different word represents it better. And then ultimately, I will go to the etymology of the word and see what the root of the word actually means to
Yeah.
make sure that when I'm using it, that I am using the word in its entirety as a resonance and a feeling, not just as a pretty word that I can put on my vision board.
Mm.
So it's very deep for me. When I first started this process, I didn't have all that understanding of it.
Yeah.
And so it was a little less, I don't know, deep. It was really, it was still good. And it was me learning the process. And
Oh, yeah.
so, I see we have a question. So I want to
Yeah.
get to that. So I'm going to pause and I'll talk about kind of the rest of the process in a moment.
So Hugh asked, can you have a desire without already understanding what it is, knowing when you accomplished it?
Ooh, I feel like that might be two questions in one, Hugh.
Yeah.
He's always got the good ones.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you have a desire without already understanding what it is? I personally, I believe you can. I feel like the desire is whole or true, no matter whether you have a label for it or not. I
Yeah.
think knowing what it is the part that's in your brain, that where your brain says, yeah, I know this, because can be very much a mental thing.
Yeah.
And the having the desire might happen consciously or unconsciously, whether you have real awareness of it being a desire or not. So let me see the whole question. Can you have a desire without already understanding what it is, knowing when you accomplish it? So if I understand your question, Hugh, are you saying like, oh, I'll know what it is after I reach it? Because
Probably.
there's truth to that.
Because you'd have that feeling that you're desiring, and maybe you just know that you want this feeling, but you don't know what that thing is until you have accomplished it, and then it's like, oh, that's how I kind of understand it. And then
Yeah.
your vision board is with words. Some of mine is.
Yeah. My vision board is mostly words usually. Oh, he says yes. Okay. So hopefully we answered your question. If not, feel free to bring it back.
Yeah.
So yeah, as I create my core desired feelings, I also I like to nerd out on things like human design. And my human design is I'm an emotional authority, which means it's really beneficial for me to allow a little bit of time for my emotions to settle on something before I commit.
Yeah.
And so I'll sleep on this or give it a day or two. And I will come back and revisit them and say, do I still feel the same about this list of words? Does it still strike me? Does it still generate this feeling internally when I go through these words? And I'll even show you like my notebook. It's it's hard to see, but I create a grid even, and I really weigh out, like, we only have so much focus.
Yes.
Right? We do genuinely have limits to energy or focus at some point. And so I really make sure that I don't have so many that, like, I want it to be, 6 at the most. I try to keep it to 4. Some years that works out, some years it doesn't. And I will go through and block them out and say, like, pleasure, faith, and affluence are bigger for me than the other ones. It's not that they're important, but they're newer as far as like what it feels like to be in that energy and that emotion more of the time. And so I know I'm going to need to give more attention to that and probably spend more time cultivating that, checking in. Am I feeling this? Am I off track?
Yeah.
That's the idea, right? With the core desired feeling. So you've got this list and you've cultivated it and you've narrowed it down and you've got your core desired feelings figured out. And then what do you do with it?
Yeah. Like, am I in alignment with it?
Yeah. And at the beginning of the year, I'm really clear on them. I'm like, yeah, I just did this. Like, they're very fresh in me. They feel really solid. And then here we are at the end of March, and I'm like, oh, like I haven't tapped in. Like I've gotten a little off with healthy.
Oh yeah.
What healthy means to me. I'm a little off with that. I'm not checking in as much. I'm not doing the things that I know are important to me. So for me, healthy is defined as mental health, physical health, and emotional health. That's what
Yeah.
healthy is. It's not a number on a scale for me right now. It's not a blood pressure measurement. Like it might be something different to every person. But
Yeah.
for me, it's this like balance that'll never be perfect, but it'll always be returning to equilibrium.
Yeah. And
Equilibrium, by the way,
what
was
do
my
I need in this moment?
yeah,
Like what's life for me right now? And
exactly.
and is it alive? And like, because then you can tune in and say, okay, well, how does my body feel? And
Mhm.
going back to that heart, like, how is my heart feeling about this?
Yes, and you said gut, which I
Yeah.
think is
Gut.
important too. I refer to that more as sacral for
Yes.
me. And so I'll check in, was my heart and what's my sacral say? Because that's
Yeah.
my creation space, that's my feminine space, right? That's where I literally create from, whether it's a human or it's a dream or it's an emotion that I need to transmute.
Yeah. The
And
womb space is huge,
yes, oh my gosh, we could do a
for
whole
men and for women. So for men, it's the hara,
yes.
and then that's like, so men naturally, that's what they project out into the world. So what are they projecting, and is it in harmony? Or and even if we think about us, because we have both male and female energies,
Yeah.
is that in balance? Am I projecting things? Am I in balance, or am I allowing myself to feel and to be able to create in harmony?
Right.
And then you can say, oh, okay, yeah, one of my feelings was pleasure as well, like yours.
Yes. Oh, I
And
want to hear all of yours. Share all of yours if you're willing.
yeah, so last year it's kind of changed. So last year it was satiety, and it wasn't really about eating at all. It was just feeling full with life. Like, am I giving myself everything that I need? And just that feeling that's just beyond, where you're just a little bit over full, but you're not completely. It's just like that satiety and just really enjoying life. And then it was pleasure and being able to be pleasureful and experience both, because I've been in the struggle before, and then coming back into that pleasure.
Yeah.
And then it was also embodiment and embodying the king and the queen. So embodying the divine marriage between the masculine and the feminine. So to have that sense of balance, because I got into the too much feminine, and then you don't have structure, and then you can't accomplish. You're just in that flow all the time, and
We need both. We
you
need
need both.
both. Yeah.
You need both. You can get off track. And so it's changed a little bit to more to devotion and being devoted and not going in. I'm Gene Keys as well. I
Oh,
love
yeah.
that. And so instead of Gene Key 29, it's like half-heartedness, and then it goes to commitment, but then it goes to devotion. And am I devoted to this? And when you're devoted, then you go beyond, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if there's like a dollar number. It doesn't matter if there's something. It's like, no matter what, I am devoted to this. And
Yes.
so coming more into that, as well as the other one is held, and just really being held by the universe, by myself,
I love that.
holding me. And so this really helps people. And I know you do some workshops, and you have taken this book and you have created like essentially a course about it. And so I'll let you also talk about that.
Sure. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, so I've created kind of cool. I've created a course out of it simply because I, started taking my friends through it
Yeah.
and was doing it anyway. And I love collaborating, and I just really enjoy. I'm an extrovert, so I enjoy and I love to teach. And so I enjoy the experience of seeing other people have the same experience, the aha moments that I did, and getting in tune. And so I eventually built it into a course because, this is what I do for a living now. And so this workshop we did this year was about 3 hours. And we really go through, what are your values first? and spend some time and use some of the tools I have to get into clarity about your values. And then, oh, that's cute. PMS. I like that. And then I go into what are core desired feelings? How do I know when it's a core desired feeling versus an achievement-based goal? What's the difference? What's the same? How do I use these together? We're not demonizing or making negative anything about goals. Like we just talked about that concept of structure versus flow.
Yeah.
Important. We want both. We need frameworks so that we can flow through them and still stay grounded and not get too nebulous. But if we're all structure, then we miss out on creativity. We miss out on embodiment.
Yeah.
Right? So it really brings those two together. And we go through a process of creating words. I teach the tools and even show the tools I use online. Like, here's how I research the etymology of a word. Here's my favorite thesaurus online. And I actually, in the workshop, depending on how big it is, will live work session for a few people, some of their words, so you can see how to whittle it down. If you've got 4 words that are the same. So like you have held and I have the word backed. They probably are very similar, but the word backed means something really specific for me.
Yeah.
And the word held was on my list. And for whatever reason, this year it was backed more than held. And I was like, well, that's interesting. The resonance of that word felt better to me. And I could actually, what I like to say, like, I can emotionally back it. I can energetically back that word, which means I'm in alignment of it, where it doesn't feel like something I'm striving to. It's actually here already. That was a really important step in the process of getting your list to a place where it doesn't feel like it's flowery or it's for someone else or it's for an impression or it's going to look it on your vision board. It is really for you.
Yeah.
And so going through that process, and then we go through the grid that I kind of showed, and I say, okay, now you've got your words and they might be draft during the workshop, and that's okay. But which ones are going to be the biggest anchors? Like, which ones? Because if you have 6, there are probably not going to be all 6 at all times. You probably can manage maybe 2 or 3 your first year trying this and getting used to this. So what are your top ones? Put them in a single file order. If I really force them to do a forced ranking.
Yeah.
And then we take that and we put it in the grid. And then from the grid, within the grid, we do some definition where we get away from what Webster's dictionary defines that word as, and you actually define it yourself and what it feels like to you, because putting something, either voicing it out loud or putting it in writing, takes things from the subconscious and makes them conscious.
Yeah.
And that makes them real. And so we go through that process. Yeah. And then I talk about all of the ways you can use this. For one, you want to create some anchors in your life, whether that is Post-it notes all over your bathroom mirror, whether it's index cards that you use, whether it's a meditation practice. For some people, it is a journaling practice. I think it really just depends on your personality and who you are and what you like to use. And then we talk about, how do I know when I'm off track? Right? Because that's really it. Like, the meat of this process happens after you're done defining your core desired feelings. It's living with them and using them as guides. And so if you think about like these core desired feelings as your guardrails, and you want them to kind of like sprinkle through or infiltrate every thing you're doing in your life in some way. And so, like, I have an affirmations app that I love on my phone, and I make sure that in those affirmations, these words are coming up. I also I like using affirmations, and I set alarms on my phone that have the affirmation as the description of the alarm on my iPhone.
I love that.
And so I'll have a couple times a day an alarm go off, and I see the affirmation. I have to recite it to myself because I'm making it from subconscious to conscious. And my core desired feelings need to be woven in to those affirmations so that I'm continuing to bring them up. It might not say these words per se, but they're the driving factor. Like, what gets me in alignment with affluence as an example. So affluence, the way I described or defined it for me, is flowing with ease, um, and abundance, being responsible with incredible abundance, financial abundance, emotional abundance, and an abundance of ease. Those are the words or the phrases that I listed there. And so for me, I've got some affirmations that are all about, what else is possible and why is this so easy? And money is my friend and supports me. I think one of them right now is, oh my gosh, I'm just going to look it up because my brain just went do.
That's okay. It has that. Well, and money's an energy as well. And so then you can create that affirmation and that feeling around it. And then you're not like forcing it or pushing it away from you. And you open up to receiving it.
And abundance has been a core desired feeling for me before. And there are definitely factors in my life or places in my life where I can easily get into that sense of abundance and see around me all of the results of it. So really, this was about turning the dial a little bit more, being like, what specific abundance am I looking for?
Yes.
And I'm not looking for wealth. Like that wasn't it. So it was like, okay, so I've got to dial this in. So one of my affirmations, it happens at 1:11 every day, is I magnetize and co-create money with the universe.
I love that. It's like, right? Excited about it. One of my mentors dance with it.
Yes, exactly. It feels good. It feels really good. It's this part. And so for me, that represents a lot. It represents the affluence, but it represents being backed. Because I'm co-creating with source, whatever you want to call it. I like to call it Gus, God, universe, source.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah. So for me, I'm working with the universe or source or God, whatever word you want to use for it. And I'm co-creating there. So it's like, let me be a vehicle for what's needed. So I'm creating that flow, that affluence. I'm backed because I'm in alignment. It's pleasurable for me because both of us just experienced pleasure with that. We're like, look how juicy that is. Look how yummy that is.
You could feel that sensation in your body.
Yeah. And it takes the stress of the super uber achievement hustle piece of I have to make money away from me, because I get into a creation space with that thought and that feeling where I'm co-creating and magnetizing. I'm not chasing.
Yeah.
Like I don't chase, I attract. Yeah. So anyway, so that's a little bit, it also really emphasizes faith for me. So this is what faith is for me. It is faith that I can move. And this is actually, I have to credit Nick for this. Towards I think it was either beginning of January, or it might've been end of December. I was just having a rough time. There were some things happening in my life that I was really struggling with. And, we keep in touch as friends, and he realized I was struggling, and he's like, let me help you, like he does. And I was like, of course, let me receive. Thank you. I need it. And, he really pushed me to he's like, you need to get in line with your faith, your faith that you'll be supported, your faith in the universe. And, what I wrote down for my definition of this is deep, unwavering faith in myself and the universe, recognizing I am an extension of the universe. Like, of course I'm backed.
Yes, of course.
Of course. Right. And it was that, of course, that faith that at the end of last year, I was really struggling with. And so bringing that forward, how do I align these core desired feelings into all of the pieces and crevices and structures and frameworks in my life? So affirmations is one example. I know affirmations are probably not for everyone, and that's okay.
That's okay.
Not all affirmations work for me either.
Yeah.
But I found ways to say them in that work for me. So let's have a question about affirmations.
Yeah, this goes right in alignment with what you're asking.
Just have me say the affirmations, because I don't believe that already about myself at my core. Okay, so this is a great question, Hugh. This is what I mean by energetically backing or emotionally backing something. If I am saying an affirmation that I don't believe to be true, I'm wasting my time.
Yeah, you're
I might even be creating more resistance.
I could feel that.
What's your thoughts on that, Shawnalee? Do you feel like
Yeah, I've been told, like, get it into something that's a little bit more like a little bit more closer to what you believe. Because, like, so say if you're going to um, I desire to make $30,000 a month, your subconscious is going to just like shut that off.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, no.
If you're making 5 and you're saying I want to make 30, your conscious mind's like,
Yeah.
with that.
Yeah. No, so it needs to be like within reach, like still stretching yourself, but then bringing it to a state where it's more achievable. And then also, like, if you're doing specifically numbers, then odd numbers. The subconscious pays attention to that more. And
Oh,
so
that's interesting. I've never heard that.
$11,101.11. A lot of people make fun of, they're like, what are your numbers and what do they even mean? But I always like to refer to my angels in my pricing as well. And so I had things that were like 8888. Well, that's abundance.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's abundance for me and for you. Or 1234 and 555. Yeah.
It means something to you.
Yes. Yeah.
What comes to mind with this too, Hugh, have you ever heard of the concept of, I hope I say this right, transcendental surfing, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
Yeah. And this concept talks about working with the subconscious in a way that you're not fighting it, but you're actually working with it. And so instead of stating an affirmation in a format that is a statement of what's already here, you can change it into a question that your mind can answer, which is going to create possibility. Instead of creating resistance, the brain is going to evaluate and say, that's not true. But if it's a question, then your brain's going to, because our brain is a computer, then the brain's going to come up with all the ways that that's possible.
Ooh.
And so a lot of the affirmations that I don't feel like I can back yet, I make into questions. Like, right now I'm single and I am looking for a particular type of partnership experience. So for that, it's really hard for me to come up with a specific statement that is going to describe exactly what that is.
Like
and if I tried to narrow it into just a statement or an affirmation or even a list of affirmations, like a checklist, that still feels very wrong to me. So I like to put it into questions that create possibility. Like, what else is possible in my romantic life?
I love that.
And then my brain starts filling in the answers.
Yeah.
Well, this is possible. This is possible. This is possible. One of the things I'm learning, to kind of reconnect to, there was a point in my life where I was very steeped in religion. And when I left religion, when I left that religion, but also just religion in general, there were a lot of phrases and words that felt very sticky to me that I struggled with. And so faith was one of them, for example. But anything that I felt like was part of that point in my life that was religious, that I felt like took me back to that energy, I would have this visceral no reaction to. And so I had to really learn how to move past certain words until I could heal my resistance to those words, because I would feel my conscious mind saying, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
Even though I had a knowing that it didn't have to mean that, my programming or the conditioning that had been a part of that upbringing had so strongly connected to that word that emotional resonance was attached to that phrase or that word. And so for me, that was really important for me to understand, like going through core desired feelings or going through working with language and really paying attention to alignment. Anytime you're doing this kind of work, it's important you don't try to trick your mind. You're not trying to outsmart yourself. You're not trying to power through or push through.
Yeah.
Because that ain't going to work. You're going to end up in a loop until you can clear those blocks, until you can clear that conditioning and kind of run it back. So words like faith, God, even really strong structures like the concept of marriage for a while was really difficult for me. because I meant something very specific and I didn't have necessarily a positive emotional resonance to those words.
Yeah.
So now it's a different world. I'm a different person now. But it's been, wow, like it's been 20 something years.
Oh yeah.
Since that. So I've had a lot of time
That's
to process through that.
And really reshift and really get to the core. I love how this kind of plays into is getting clear on what you desire. Then you can also get to what you desire in your partnership, into we talk about sacred sexuality. We talk about like, what is it that you really want to experience? And not so much on like the religion side, but what does this mean in this realm? And really defining for that for yourself, and really getting to the core, into like, this is what I want to feel in my gut. This is what I want to wake up and what I want to feel in this relationship. And so you can meditate on that. Like Florence Scovel Shinn in The Game of Life and How to Play It, she talks about how you can meditate on those certain feelings. And so not only even Abraham Hicks, so you're feeling it in yourself and it's activating that in you, but then you're going to see that out in your outer world, and then start to align and energetically on that vibrational level attract that to you.
Yes, absolutely. Totally with you there.
And this kind of goes into the other topics we were getting into, is the divine masculine and feminine. And then also, your coaching and how you talk about coming back into that sacred sexuality and how you come back into alignment with that.
Yes.
So I'll let you go ahead and.
Sure. Oh my gosh. Such big topics here. Big topics.
They are. How to bite those little pieces, but.
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of hinted a little already around these concepts of masculine and feminine energy. And so I just want to really clearly define that when I talk about, and I think you and I are in the same place here, when I talk about masculine and feminine, I'm not necessarily talking about man versus woman.
Yeah, no.
Right? Like putting gender outside of this conversation and talking about energy, because we all need to have both.
Yes.
And while they're going to show up differently in each individual, and we get to choose our expression of them.
Yeah.
Masculine and feminine are necessary for a healthy emotional, physical, and energetic experience in life. Like we need both. We need both. And when we're out of balance, I think we can really tell. We can really feel when we're out of balance in those things, because I about in my past corporate career being way, way, way into the masculine and not nearly enough feminine. And you had talked about recently being into the feminine so much that you lost structure.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of floating and flowing, and things get away from you without the frameworks.
Yeah.
So, part of the coaching, I do a number of things in my coaching. I do something called emotional resonance clearing, where we systematically go through from using the scale of consciousness. So when we talked about emotions have a resonance,
yes,
they do, and they're actually measurable. And so there's already emotions are already measured on a scale. It's out there. If you just Google emotional resonance or scale of consciousness, David Hawkins, any of that work, you're going to find a scale where emotions are actually measured by hertz. They put off a vibration that's measurable. And so I do one of these things I do called the spiral, where we go through emotional resonance clearing from the lowest vibration or the lowest hertz, which is shame, all the way to the top of the scale, which is enlightenment, which is 1,000 hertz. And it's not to say that you cannot go lower than 20, which is what shame vibrates at, or you can't go higher than 1,000, because you can, but that's where typically those emotions measure to, is 20 up to 1,000. And so in that process, as we're clearing anything that's blocking or holding you in too much of that emotion or locking it in your system, if you have an overabundance of shame, then you're going to typically vibrate or stay in a place more quickly experiencing shame or a low level of shame at all times. It's going to be very hard for you to reach above 20 hertz. So you're very often going to feel low, slow. Doesn't mean bad. Shame,
No.
a necessary emotion. We need to experience shame so we can experience things like remorse. Otherwise, we'd all be sociopathic. So we need shame. We need guilt. We need some of these emotions. None of them are bad. But we also can't live in enlightenment at all the time.
Right.
If we lived always at enlightenment, we wouldn't be human.
Yeah, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to do the humanness things. We wouldn't be able to parent. We wouldn't be able to. It's something you dip into, just like shame is something you dip into. So typically we're around the center. Ideally, we're around neutral to that scale, or maybe a little higher, closer to love. Neutral is just below love on the scale. And so that's some of the work I do. And that really allows people through that series, going through those clears, to recognize where are you out of balance. Yeah. If you anchor heavily into some of the more controlling or highly structured things, or you need to feel a sense of them to feel safe, you are probably too heavy in your masculine. If you resist structure, or you resist frameworks, or you resist, it's not avoidance necessarily. It's really more a matter of like, I don't like being stuck in a method, for example. Then you might be out of balance and too in your feminine. Mm-hmm. And so those are just some examples. It's not a hard, fast rule there, but that's one of the things I've seen in my clients. So balancing those and clearing those conditionings can really help bring a healthy balance to those. And some people are just going to be a little more feminine, and some people are going to be a little more masculine, and that's not bad. Yeah. It just is.
And that's different cores too. So like a feminine can have a masculine core, and a male can have a feminine core, but then like the rest of you is that. So like I was shown that I have a masculine core and the rest of me is feminine. And so it's really coming into that. Yeah.
I like that.
I got to see that in like a meditation.
I'm actually, so the other specialty I work in is in sexuality, intimacy, and relationships. So I help coach couples through all kinds of stuff, whether it's about bringing back that spark in their relationship, or I work with individuals as well. And for some, it's overcoming a lot of either misunderstanding of their sexuality, of their desire, of their body, or learning how to get into their body again to experience pleasure. Pleasure in all ways, not just sexual pleasure, but yes, plenty of that, hopefully, right? But also pleasure in general, pleasure of like enjoying a coffee, or the texture of something, or a sunrise, for example, or music. And so really, we're oftentimes, I talked about going through that process of clearing things like shame. Yeah. Because shame is such a common thing when it comes to sex and sexuality. And so it's almost like, I don't take people through the work I do in sexuality without clearing shame first. Like we do that at the beginning. We clear shame, guilt, and dogma at the beginning of that process so that we can open up into things in a way that's safe. And we're not throwing it out with the bathwater. We're not like, all of this is bad, but we're clearing where it's blocking you from experiencing the rest of the scale or expanding into your sexuality. And so when we talk about things like getting into and getting clarity around the feminine, the masculine, one of the things in my own journey I'm experiencing as I go through the process of dating as an adult, which is a process. It's an adventure, I'll tell you.
It is.
Yes. Even after I've been doing this kind of work on myself for years now, right? Like, on one hand, we never finish healing. Yeah. And on the other hand, you do not need to be healed to live your life and experience amazing things. Like, that pendulum, right? Yeah. You're never healed, but you also don't stop living until you're healed. Yeah.
I can't date until I'm at this point. Right.
Yeah, I would probably be single the rest of my life. Never try. Anyway, I might be single the rest of my life. Who knows? But and being okay with that too. Yeah. But where I'm at right now in this particular point in my journey is I am realizing that even in my feminine and my masculine, and I believe this applies to anybody, we have a light and a dark of each.
Yes.
And the light doesn't mean good or godly, and the dark doesn't mean bad or evil. They're really just different. And we need the light and the dark in all things, just like we need the masculine and the feminine. It's those polarities that balance each other that are important. So for me, I realized just in the past maybe 3 months that I have been suppressing my dark masculine for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even, it really, really hit me. Actually, about 4 weeks ago, I was dating somebody, and it didn't work out. We chose not to continue dating. And I recognized that in that process, I not only did I completely tap out of my core desired feelings, like I completely shut down pleasure, I shut down faith, I shut down a lot of the things that I know are my guiding light right now. And I didn't go into like angry woman. I didn't go into dark feminine. I didn't, I had a lot of emotions, but I was really able to see for the first time where that dark masculine, he's the keeper of my boundaries. And sure, my feminine shows up in them too, but he comes out with the sword and is like, these are strong. And I tapped into him when I chose to not continue moving forward in that budding relationship. But I almost was a little scared of it. I was like, oh, where did that come from? And it's not what I'm used to feeling.
Yeah.
And it was this big aha moment for me of, oh, I have to embrace all of it.
Yes.
To be whole, there's room for all of that. And really not suppressing it, letting it speak, letting it show up, telling me what it needs to tell me, showing me all the places where I let my boundaries, like strong boundaries here and here, not boundaries here and here. You need them all across. And I was like, oh man, that's so true. That makes sense now. That was the learning from that experience. So yeah, I'm working on embodying my own dark masculine right now. Actually, that's a big journey for me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And helping people through that, helping clients through that, and being able to say, hey, embrace all of you and embrace what comes up. I have a lot of women that are going into their Lilith, or, embracing it all and not having that shame around being able to be in all. Like, I've been the nice Shawnalee, I've been the good Shawnalee, but then that warrior goddess wants to come forward. And so allowing and embracing that voice to come out, and that strength, and also in that masculine, that power.
Yeah. I like to work with, whether it's goddess energy or ascended masters, whatever.
Yeah, ascended masters.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely some of the Hecate, Kali energy for that dark masculine and how important that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And absolutely balancing it with the light as well. But really, good question. Do you think there are boundaries in our energy?
Well,
what does boundaries mean? Hugh, what do boundaries mean to you? Do you mean limits, or do we use our energy to uphold our boundaries?
Yeah, because you could have out in your aura, you could have this boundary like, don't mess with me, without having to energetically speak that to somebody.
Yep.
I think you can place that definitely in your aura so that it is felt like, hey, like, I'm all about being open. But that's like also leaving your heart open, how we started, Dan, with the desire map and being heart-centered, allowing your heart to be open, but expressing into your boundaries of, hey, this is okay with me, or this is not. That's how we express our love for each other, is our boundaries.
Yeah.
And how I can love you and you can love me at the same time.
Yep.
Is expressing those boundaries and being able to speak up. And so also working with clients to be able to use that voice, that throat chakra.
Absolutely.
And opening up that heart. I have no boundaries for others. Oof.
So the way that...
Well, it can be taken into context.
Yeah, I think the way that I've approached this in my coaching, when I see that people are lacking boundaries with other people or are stuck in people-pleasing type of
Yes.
methods or energy. Usually that's coming from some really deep-rooted stuff. And in the short term, the best thing you can do is to recognize where having boundaries is kind.
Yes.
Because when you experience another person that doesn't have any boundaries and you think you're safe to move in with an ask or with something, and you realize later that you've been taking too much from that person, or that they were doing it from a place of, well, I just don't know how to say no, but I actually shouldn't be saying yes to this because I don't have the space or money or energy or whatever.
Yeah.
If somebody is holding healthy boundaries, and remember, boundaries don't need to be an electric fence. They can be a picket fence with a gate.
Yes.
It can be friendly. It can be, but it's clear where they're delineated. Like, this is the limit, and I might open the gate and let you in, but that is my choice. And when I do, you can trust it. You can trust my yes because you can trust my no.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm being kind to somebody, my boundary might not always look like, no, I don't have time for that. Right. And if it is, that's okay too. But my boundary might look something more like, I can't do that this time.
Yeah.
Ask me again in the future, please. Or I can't help you this way, but I could help you this way. Or I have a resource for that, but I can't do it myself. So let me give you that contact, or let me give you the phone number to that service you can hire. And so boundaries is like a whole other, like, that's a course in and of itself times 5, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But having boundaries with other people in your life is actually one of the kindest things you can do for someone, because it clears up so much confusion. It prevents resentments. It creates a clean container in the relationship between my yes and my no, and my ability to give comes from a genuine place and not from a place of obligation, which is heart-centered. It means I'm coming from a genuine place of, I can give this. And then if you have no boundaries with others, you probably aren't great at receiving.
Yeah.
It's usually a hint that you haven't learned how to receive from others either. And so you'd rather give, because that means you're not receiving. So that might be a whole other thing, Hugh, but we can talk about that.
Feeling comfortable in receiving. And kind of what that brought up for me too is like being rooted in your own energy, where that you don't need to take it from somebody, because you're essentially like trying, to me, it's kind of feels like it's a taking energy. Is because you're feeding off of that. You're filling yourself up by just give. But instead of really giving, it's really that taking energy, because it's not in alignment, because you're still receiving something from that. And it's not just like that natural receiving, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely. That makes sense. Yeah, it does. I really feel like one of the things that's been a big shift in my own life as I've worked on learning to receive, recognizing that anytime I prevent myself from receiving something, I'm actually preventing the other person from the opportunity to give. And I love to give.
Yeah.
And so when somebody refuses to receive from me, it's sad. It's a gift I want to give to them, and they aren't willing to take it for whatever reason. They've been hurt. They don't deserve it. Whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
And also, when I interact with somebody who has clean boundaries and they express, I can't receive that right now, I can respect it and not take it personal, because I understand they typically do say yes when they can. So I can trust it.
Yeah.
And vice versa. I start to trust myself when I have boundaries, which means I'm willing to take more risks because I trust myself. I know what my limits are. I know how to take care of myself better. And I can take bigger leaps when I'm resourced and my boundaries are good. And I can also pull back and take care of myself when my boundaries need to be stronger.
Yeah. Discarded the boundaries after what happened to Jessica. No control whether a person will honor my boundary. So today there's no boundaries for you. Completely up to me how I allow the situation.
Yeah. And I understand, Hugh, that there's a significant situation, there is significant trauma that's happened. And so that's some very deep healing, and that's some deep work
Yes.
there. And it's not to say that you're doing something wrong. You're
No,
doing
not at all.
the best of your ability with
Yeah.
what you are right now, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
And there's a lot of resources out there about boundaries. So if
Yes.
you're interested in any of those, let us know and we'll get some back to you. Just let us know in the comments and we'll circle back.
Yeah. Let us know. And even energy work, we're both Reiki masters, and clearing up some of that energy, and even just feeling safe. Like I think of root chakra and
Yes.
that safety and security. Like you were definitely uprooted and not safe. And that was something that just completely, would rock anybody's world.
Absolutely.
And completely. So just getting yourself safe and really just offering your own self like that love, and just telling yourself like each day, and holding yourself, like physically holding yourself like I love you, and just feeding back into your heart. Like I went into a meditation today and just feeding back the heart like I love you, I love you, I love you, and thank you, and feeling it. And it's not just like that, those words, but really like feeling it and honoring it, and looking at yourself in the eyes. And we both had, I think, talked about mirror work the other day, and just looking at yourself in the eyes and saying, I'm proud of you and I love you. And
That can be so uncomfortable.
It can.
But
and as we soften into these things, that's what helps open us up and open the heart up. And so like coming back to like, what does your heart want? And
I'm living beyond any desire vision I humanly could think of. Yes. So
I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I think Hugh, for you, it's really, as it would be for any individual.
Yeah.
Start with where you're at. For some people, it's really like when I first started working with meditations, I really struggled to sit still. Even to this day, I'm not a silent meditator. What I do often is I will listen to things as I go to sleep, because I'm working with my subconscious. And so if some of these things that we're suggesting feel a little too feminine for you, or feel a little out of reach for you, you can start where you're at.
Yeah.
Start where you're at. Find some things that work for you. Whether if affirmations are not for you, that's okay.
Yeah.
If meditation is not for you, if mirror work is not for you, that's okay. There are things out there that are, but it's really a matter of find the thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's where you're responsible. That's where you're the masculine. You decide, you find the thing that works for you, and then start doing the work.
Yeah.
Then you got to start doing the work.
Yeah. The nighttime sleep meditations are huge for me. Is I love to listen to it at night, because it's reprogramming my subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind takes everything literally. It's your body. And that's where our trauma is stored up. And so all the work that we have been talking about, even the desires and the feelings, and going into the energy work, into the spiral work, into Reiki, into any of that work, it's taking that feeling out of your body and literally changing it. So like even going outside for walks might help, like physical activity, bringing that healing down to the physical.
It's so personal. Healing is so personal. It's really, and that's where with like coaching, we're both coaches, and people ask questions like, well, what do you do? What's it like to work with you? I'm like, well, it depends on you. Where are you at? What do you need? What tools do you have currently? How do you want to feel when we're done? How do you want to feel along the process of when we're working together? And I think it's, it's very personal. It's very unique. And there's, we both, you and I, we have a lot of tools in our tool belt. A lot of spiritual tools, a lot of modalities, a lot of training, a lot of certifications, even activation. And, so finding a coach that fits you, that you resonate with, and that will change. I have coaches that I adore that I've worked with that are not right for me right now. Period. And it has nothing to do with them. It's me. Finding the coach that fits you, finding the methods that fit you is it's kind of like a treasure hunt a little bit. You can look at it that way. And like, this works for me right now. This feels right to me right now. Or I can wrap my brain around that right now, because they're not in their feeling centers yet. They're not in their body yet. And so it's like, this logically makes sense to me now. Okay, great. Start there.
Start
where you're at.
And I think your higher self automatically like brings those people to you once you start to open up to like, I need a coach. Who is my coach? Energetically, I think that they're brought to you, and then you have that resonance like with what they're saying and their words and how you're feeling. I think that brings that feeling in your body and starts to open you up to. And as you invest in yourself, like coaching, you know, you're investing in you. And okay, so you may talk about price and you're like, well, I don't want to pay that. But think about what you get about it. It's not about the money. That's just like the energetic exchange. It's you grow so much. Like you are paid 10 times that amount in just what you get from coaching with somebody and coming back into that alignment, into that growth. And then that's somebody that's there to help keep you accountable, but you're ultimately the one that's responsible. And so like, what are you going to put into it really is what you get out of it too. And
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I found, and there's different points too. When I was first learning to invest in myself, it was at a much smaller amount than what I'm willing to do today.
Yeah.
And of course too, like, I think there's a matter of, you know, there are coaches that are in my field that it would cost $10,000, $20,000 to work with. I'm like, that's not in my reach today.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. And sometimes it is.
Right. So I think it's really personal, but I do feel like we attract what we need, or we will feel drawn to the thing that is in alignment with us.
Correct.
And so I'm not for everybody. I kind of joke. I have a few clients that say they chose me because they knew they couldn't bullshit me. I was like, perfect, you're right. And I will be very honest with you. And we have these phrases like one of my clients, I adore her. She calls it the booter to the cooter is what she calls it when I give her a truth bomb. She's like, it's a swift kick in the ass every single time. And it's a truth bomb and it's what I needed to hear. And she's like, and that's why I chose to work with you, because you will say the thing that I can't bullshit myself out of. And I was like, okay, cool. You're right. That's part of my style of coaching. And there are other coaches who are so beautifully empathetic and have this softness to them. And I think there's a time for that. And I've certainly leaned on coaches that have that energy as well. And so it's like, you've got to find your person. You've got to find your match. You've got to find the one who can do the thing that is what you're looking for.
Yeah. And I love people who tell me the truth, right?
Yes.
Those are always the ones that are like, whoa, I really needed that. Thank you so much. I remember the coaches that are like, remove your blocks, cut the bullshit. Like, you know what you're doing. And then it's like,
we've worked on this already. Let me bring it back to center. This is where we're at. Your mind is trying to distract you with this story. Let's pull you back to center. Yeah. And it's not to say there's no empathy here either. There's, everybody's got a kind of a balance of, some are going to be more fierceness, some are going to be more empathy and gentleness. And then there's a time and place for both. Absolutely. But I think you've got to find the person that's your match for that.
Yeah, totally. And then just coming back to that and like, okay, what do I need at this moment? And that's where you get to work and co-create together. Yeah. And to create that harmony and that balance and that alignment with you. And you'll know, like, as we talked about the energy centers, like, you already know, your gut knows when it's in alignment or not. And like, I just had to turn one down and say, you know what, I'm sorry, this is not in alignment with me at this moment. And same thing, like for clients, like you can energetically feel like, is this in alignment with me? Yep. And so sometimes you have to have those hard conversations. They can be hard, or they're really not. It's just like,
they don't have to be hard.
This is not for me right now, but thank you. And
absolutely. Or maybe next year I'll be ready for that. Or, I've definitely had experiences. I just today actually responded back to an offer, a collaboration I got invited into. And I was like, this is beautiful. Yes. And I'm about to move house. I'm starting a new contract. I've got a bunch of stuff happening. The timeline won't work. So circle back to me next time when you start again. And so it wasn't a no, but like when we were talking about boundaries, I think we had a good example of it.
Yes.
when I know I can trust myself that when I say yes to something, I know I'm coming from a place of deep yes. So I will commit to it. I will stick with it.
Yes.
I can commit, I can align, I can energetically back it because
Yeah.
I trust my no and I trust my yes because I use both. And
Yes.
that's so important. And it's whether a client's aligned to me or not, whether I'm aligned to an opportunity or not. It might be a job, it might be a client, it might be, like something I want to purchase at TJ Maxx, like who knows? But when I really work on the self-trust, yes, hear what you're saying, authentic is accommodating. When you can come from a place of desire instead of obligation, you're in
Yes.
alignment.
Yeah.
Desire instead of obligation. So core desired feelings, they're desire-based, they're not obligation-based. You're
Right.
not doing the goal or achieving the thing or getting the car or buying the house
Whatever.
or getting the promotion because of obligation or what it is to everyone else. If it is desire internally, then it's for you. And I don't care if other people think about it, if they think it's materialistic, if they think it's bougie, or on the other side of that, if it is, because I work with a lot of women who struggle with having desire for things. Oh, I want things, but I'm not supposed to want things. It's like, no, F that. You're allowed to want things. Absolutely. We're allowed to want things. So really allowing ourselves to have desires and not have to explain the desires, not have to justify the desires. But on the other side of that too, I actually don't want the thing that everybody wants. Like personally, I'm not a Range Rover girl. I think they're ugly. I know a lot of people who that's their goal car. I don't care about that. I have some things that are really, really bougie that I want and love that other people don't relate to. It's personal. It's your desires, right? So anyway, I think that is probably one of the biggest things of importance, really wrapping up like core desired feelings is desire based, not obligation based.
Yeah. Helps you get to know you better. And then when you know you better, you can speak for those things. You can have, those boundaries that we talked about. You can have it's that self-love and that self-respect. And this is what I desire. You desire this, but you can't, you can tell me, oh, this is for me, but you and your body. And I think that was the other thing that I wanted to talk about is just really wrapping up too, is just coming back to your body and how does it feel within the body? How does it feel within that heart center? We talked about the heart having a brain and like, is that an alignment for me? And just really feeling into it because you'll be able to feel that into anything like, like foods or whether that's jobs, relationships, anything across the map is like checking back in. Oh, how does this feel? Does it resonate?
There's a lot of ways I think to go about that. You can lean towards kinesiology, which is letting the body literally show you through motion, through strength and weakness, whether it's a yes or no for you. I do something called body testing where I actually use it with the hand. I know people who are who use it with an arm and strength with an arm, or they lean back or forward, different methods. That's more kinesiology based. But also when we talk about feeling things with the body, pendulum. I think for some people, the idea of getting into the body and feeling with the body can be really hard because they have, they still carry trauma or they still carry nervous system issues where they can't tell the difference between what my nervous system is telling me and whether we are in a regulated nervous system state or an unregulated nervous system state. And probably another call, right? Like that's another topic to go into some other time. Learning, the more you can learn about what your own body feels like when it's regulated versus when it's not regulated, when you're in a state of hyper or hypo arousal in the body, which is like your nervous system. Hyper might be anxiety, can't sit still, having a hard time concentrating, or hypo, which is I'm zoned out, I'm being over accommodating because I'm actually in fawn, where I'm just trying to make everybody around me happy, right? And if you aren't used to knowing what it feels like to be regulated, then the idea of going into the body to check the body might not actually work for you very well. And so I think there's a journey to be able to say, like, check into the body and see what the body says. Because if the body's like, we don't even know. We don't know what this feels like.
Yeah.
A great example, like in the relationship work I do, is when people mistake excitement for like romance or love,
Yeah.
infatuation, right? And they're like, oh my gosh, I get so excited. I get so nervous around them. And I'm like, that actually might not be a good thing. It's
Yeah.
not bad necessarily, but what you're experiencing in your body when this hyper arousal of your nervous system, which is saying something's not right, something's not safe, or not okay, and you're mistaken that for chemistry, like we need to
Instead of
rewire.
feeling that peace.
Yes, we need to rewire that a little bit so that you can experience the same concept at a regulated state and then see what happens. So there's so much there. There's so much there. And just, I could go
Do
on.
some clearing work with that.
Yeah.
He says, thank you so much, and loved the show and topic and discussion. And I feel like we could go like half hour more.
Oh, yeah.
We
Right.
could go like a whole show more, because there's so much more. And just like doing that clearing work in your body, feeling safe, checking in with the heart, checking in, where do I feel and what do I desire to feel?
Well, let's do another one. We'll just have to come back. Yeah.
I think so.
Okay,
I think
good.
so. Yes. And thank you everyone for joining us. And
yes, thank you. Thanks you for the questions.
Yeah, thanks you for the questions. Any other comments that are on other pages than Wake Up with Giants or Nicholas T. Smith's page? We'll come back and catch up on those. The stream's out to 8 different places and locations. So we are on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed yet, go and subscribe and like on YouTube so you know every time that we go live. If you're not a part of the Tribe of Giants, come join the Tribe of Giants. And yeah, if you haven't bought the book, buy the book. And we just love you and thank you. And thank you for taking the time to be in here. And thank you, Amanda, for a beautiful show. I loved this so much. And you're so easy to talk to. And we definitely have a lot of in common. And I've enjoyed this so much. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I love it. Yeah, I would love to come back anytime.
Yes, perfect. All right. Thank you.